I'm not sure how relatable this is going to be for my viewer demographic, but I need to talk about the debt that I'm swimming and drowning and the anxiety that I have every day. Horrible anxiety because of it. Now, me personally, I am almost, I'd say about $200,000 in debt total, with all my student loans and credit card debt and just other debt. So, and I know I chose to go to NYU. I don't regret it at all. I loved living in New York City. I loved NYU, and we all knew I was crying about it like 2 years ago when I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna be in debt after I graduate. But now that we have to like pay it back, I'm extremely alarmed and really scared and terrified. And like, obviously living in New York is really, really expensive. So I have a lot of credit cards that I'm pretty much maxed out on. So don't really have any credit that I can use, and my credit score sucks because of that and because of my loans. So that's really cool. Also, I just took literally like the first job I was offered after I graduated because I didn't have a job and debt, credit cards, medical bills, and they're paying me literally the bare minimum. But I wanted to move back to New York City as soon as possible because I wanted to, like, what 24-year-old doesn't want to go back to living on their own? Like, I don't want to live with my parents, no offense. So I'm going to do that because I love New York City. So I know what you're thinking. Wow, you're really crazy because you're in that much debt and you're going to go move to the most expensive city in the world. Yes, I am. With that being said, more than half of my monthly income will be going towards my rent. So I have to get a second job to work in order to live in New York City. And still with that second job, I'm going to be struggling to pay my bills. And then how am I going to have fun? Going out to dinner one night cost me like $100. And don't even get me started on the medical bills because I keep getting these notices that I have to pay like $20 for an appointment I went to like 2 years ago. And then they're like, we're gonna send you to collections. So that is fun. I also have a dentist appointment next week and they're gonna literally be like, you have 8 cavities. So looking forward to that bill as well. But yeah, like I really just want to cry and scream and throw up all day, every day. And I don't know if anyone can relate, but I'm gonna be in debt for the rest of my life. So might as well live it up in New York City.
Yeah, so I can understand, part of where this girl is coming from because when I had $174,000 worth of debt, I think there comes this point where you're like, it's so much debt. It's such a huge pile of debt. What's another $500 or $1,000? Like I said, mine was $174,000, and it was no student loans. Fortunately, it was consumer debt, credit card debt, home equity line of credit. And then it was this mortgage that I had on a condo downtown. So I understand the mindset of, kind of being in this, like, okay, it's so big, like, why even bother? But I would say, especially for somebody that's so young, of course there is that desire to do what it is that you want to do. But I would, if I were sitting across the table from this girl, I would just try to reason with her that, try to take a look at what your life is going to look like in the next 10 years if you go down this road. You already have $200,000 worth of debt. It sounds like there's consumer debt, there's student loan debt, there's medical debt, there's all kinds of stuff in there. So I think that this is just a huge problem that I just see in our culture, in an overarching sense. Most people are so pretty much given over to debt and are so hopeless that they'll ever be able to pay it off that they just kind of give up. And so I know that's not true. I know that, going down this path that she's talking about going down and intentionally moving to a place that she can't afford already on top of all this debt, it's just a really, really horrible idea. So my advice to anybody that's, thinking about this is really to sit down. It is overwhelming. It's a stressful event. There are lots of coaches. There are lots of resources, counselors that you can sit down that will walk through like, okay, let's make a list of all my bills, all my expenses, and all my debts, and just kind of see what the overall damage is vis-a-vis my income. It's a long, hard process of crawling out of that kind of hole, but it's totally doable. And I mean, I'm concerned, when I see stories like this, it just makes me really sad because it doesn't have to be this way. Folks that are in this kind of situation, and I know that there are a lot of people that are in this kind of situation, and I've coached a lot of people through this kind of situation over the last 15 years. But I want to start making just this process free and available to the public as much as humanly possible. So I've called it the Modern Money Operating System. So what is it? It's basically kind of designed around Dave Ramsey's 7 baby steps. So I'll cover this in a few minutes and a little bit more in depth, but I found as I was coaching a lot of my clients that had been through Dave Ramsey's program, there were some holes in the way that they sort of absorbed that material. And so I have found this, I think it's like a little bit simpler format that really focuses on the basics first. And so it's the acronym is OPTO, and the O stands for organizing your money. So making a list of your bills, expenses, and debts, planning your cash flows. And so this is where we help set up a zero-based budget. I recommend setting up a zero-based budget. And then tracking your expenses at a granular level, and obviously, reconciling those back to the budget. I would say, okay, and then optimization is really going to depend on which part of the process that you're in, and I'll cover more of that in just a second. So the part A is the OPT part of Opto, and so these are the first. What I found over the years is that this is what most people just sort of gloss over in the process, and so I have a whole free budgeting course that I have available as well that really goes through these 3 steps. This is really the most important piece. If you don't get the organization, planning, and tracking piece down, you're going to really, really struggle with the rest of the process, okay? And then the part B is the last O in Opto, which stands for, which means optimizing your current financial situation. So this is where you're, like with this young lady, I would say, all right, we got to get you a starter emergency fund. Dave Ramsey says $1,000. That's a great start. I will never, chide anyone for getting $1,000 as a baseline baby emergency fund. But I would say you need somewhere between $1,000 and $5,000 just because of inflation and just how much inflation is increasing. Once you have that, then we start tackling what your debts are, and we can work the debt snowball method, which is all of your debts from smallest to largest by dollar value, or the debt avalanche, which is where we're listing them out by interest rate. It really depends on the client's situation or your situation, which one I would recommend. A lot of times it's a hybrid. If we have a client that has, really, really high interest debt, typically we might start with that one and knock that one out and then kind of move over into more of a debt snowball posture. Lots of reasons for that. Too much to go through for this short video. And then once you are either, out of debt completely or you're close to the end of it, you want to start thinking in terms of like a larger emergency fund. Typically, we recommend 3 months to 1 year's worth of expenses. Now, I know that probably sounds, like crazy, outlandish, outside the realm of possibility. But man, believe me when I tell you, when you get this process down, you get into the swing of it and you start getting some wins, it becomes a lot easier. And then the next step in the process is investing, working towards some modicum of financial independence. And investing is really nothing more than buying assets. So there are lots of different assets that you can buy. We talk about equities, we talk about physical gold and silver, and we talk about Bitcoin, particularly in self-custody, not your keys, not your coins. We go into a lot of that. The reason that we focus on these asset classes is because of inflation. They're natural, proactive hedges against money printing. So the government can't print more gold, they can't print more silver, they can't print more Bitcoin. And so we focus a lot on those. So this, like I was mentioning a minute ago, this sort of operating system concept was built as a result of my own process of paying off $174,000 of consumer and mortgage debt over the course of about 2.5 years following Dave Ramsey's system. What I recognized as I was getting into it and kind of working through it is that there's a little bit of, if you're working through Dave Ramsey's 7 baby steps, I totally think that you should do that. It's a phenomenal system. Don't let this be an interruption necessarily, but you may need to go back and do some remedial work around the organization, planning, and expense tracking, or the budgeting piece of that process. And this really proved itself out in my experience as well, coaching, literally hundreds of coaching clients through the process. A lot of them had been through Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University 2, 3, 4. One student had been through it 5 times. And so I recognized it was just a pattern recognition of like, okay, there needs to be more granular time spent on, this the organization, planning, and tracking piece of that. And really, at the end of the day, you're kind of doing that simultaneously with saving for an emergency fund, developing, the debt elimination strategy, and the rest. So if that's something that you are interested in, I have a free PDF guide that walks through all of those steps. It also provides all the forms that you need to organize your finances, to get on that zero-based budget, and tracking forms, as well as a bunch of other stuff. So leave a comment in the comments below, Opto, and I'll send you a link to that.